Good morning. My name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report. The Morning Report is a production of fightbackmedia.com, 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 and fightbackmediatv.com. So thank you ever so much for spending some time with us this morning here on Spreaker, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, on wherever you get your podcast. If you guys would do me a huge solid, which would be really cool, if you would send an email to us at fightbackmedia@gmail.com to let us know where you're listening, that would be very, very helpful. Or if you're only watching on Rumble or on Spot or on YouTube, that would also be very, very helpful. And please tell me where you're listening from. I look at the analytics. I know that we have listeners in here in America, whatever the state you're in the United States. That'd be very cool. Also, we have listeners around the world. We have a bunch of listeners in India and New Zealand, and I'd love to hear from some of our Kiwis. Kiwis, what's up? Love to hear what's happening where you are. If you happen to be listening to somewhere else that's behind the curtain, so to speak, let me know. Let me know. I'd love to hear what's going on in places like Taiwan and places like China. What's going? Tell us what the real deal is. We really would love to know and get your story out there. All right. It is getting to be about Christmas time here in the United States and around the world, and it is winter in a lot of places. Winter here. It's 66 degrees out. I was just outside like this, kind of acclimating myself to weather that's a little cooler than I like or I'm used to, and it's starting to rain a little bit. I just came back from a store. I was trying to get a phone charger because, hang on a second here, I'm not pulling out a gun. I'm not pulling out a phone charger. This mess here that I got, that's 100 watts. It's a 100-watt USB-C supercharger, except that it sucks. How about that? Seemed like such a great idea. Apparently, it is not. Looking for a replacement. And it's 50. It was $50. However, and I saw somebody walking in the store with a mask on. Now, before we get into all of this, I want to preface it by saying I don't care if you wear a mask. I really don't. And I know discussing it sort of negates the statement I just made. I don't care what you do. My question is, why are you doing it? For what reason? And especially because this person was not in an N95 mask or anything like that. It was in one of those, those masks you get from the dollar store. That basically have holes in it that are this big, that a colony of viruses could get in and be up in your nose. Now, if you're sick and if you're sick and you're trying to protect me, the best way that you can protect me is to stay home, because that's not protecting me. I don't get any false sense of security because, well, I had a little cough and I didn't want to get back and get sick. No. How you do that, if you're worried about me, especially because I'm a person of a certain age, and you're worried about getting me sick, stay home. Stay away from me. Because the false sense of security that you get by wearing a mask doesn't really make me any safer. Now, we're finding out, and a lot of us knew, and we're telling you guys that there would be repercussions to our children through all that. Here's one of them. New reporting from the New York Times dives into public health data that shows a concerning trend when it comes to the causes of death for America's children. One that coincides with the COVID-19 pandemic and spiked during the first year of lockdowns and COVID-caused chaos that has been accompanied by a general spike in violent crime. Now, people can like or not like this, but this is data. And remember what Willie has always said: Data is way more important than projections. Data is the thing. So, as the pandemic spread across the United States in 2020, the number of children who were killed precipitously, the Times reported, according to the data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, it's funny, my wife and I were having this conversation yesterday, a couple of days ago. I always used, and you can look back at all my podcasts, I always use the numbers that they gave me. The numbers from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the numbers from Johns Hopkins. I didn't try to make up any numbers. I just said, what numbers are you giving me? The U.S. Census Department, the Labor Department, the Department of Education. I use the government numbers to prove the foolishness of all of it. The rate of child homicide in the United States rose about 28% in 2020, from 2.2% per 100,000 in 2019 to 2.8 per 100,000 in 2020. They explained it rose 28%. The rate of death for America's children means that, in a chilling reality, homicide is a leading cause of death among American children, making the United States an outlier among similarly developed nations, where car accidents, cancer, and other illnesses and injuries are on the top causes of death, the Times added. More on what researchers found about child homicides. Here's what they found out. Overall, older children and boys of all ages were more likely to be victims of gun violence than younger children and girls. The CDC found a decline in homicide rates overall among girls, infants and children under 6, as well as among white children, Asian or Pacific Islander children, and children in the Northeast. Homicides of younger children often occur in and near the home and are most commonly perpetrated by parents and caregivers. The homicides are often linked to child abuse and neglect and reflect the stresses experienced by families, said Dr. Ilmore J. Kaufman, a trauma surgeon at the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine and co-author of the editorial accompanying the homicide study. Now, what do we say? We said that, with these children, these people locked into these little boxes called apartments, homes, under the stress and strain of what COVID was and was made to be, and in my opinion, overly done. When CBS is showing videos of emergency rooms that were insane, and we found out a day or two later that the video they shown was an error. It was actually an Italian emergency room, and they're like that all the time when they're working on the thing here. But when that sort of pressure is put on every day, when the death count is put on every single day, when they're just rolling the deaths by people every single day, that creates stress and strain. And what do we say would happen? Child abuse would go through the roof, and it did. And on the cusp of child abuse going to the roof, children being murdered was bound to follow. Older children and teenagers, on the other hand, were more likely to be killed in altercations with acquaintances or strangers in public places. Guns are more likely to be involved in these killings, and violence reflects the deprivation and that disproportionately affects Black people and communities of color. Yeah, it's worse in the hood. That's a really nice way to say it's worse in the hood. I'll read that again because you probably didn't hear it. Other children and teenagers, on the other hand, were more likely to be killed in altercations with acquaintances or strangers in public places. She noted guns are more likely to be involved in these killings, and the violence reflects a deprivation that proportionally affects Black people and other communities of color. What she said there was things are worse in the hood there. In addition to many other collateral damages that came as a result of the COVID-19 lockdowns, forced remote learning, mental health, substance abuse crisis, surging child homicides cannot be separated from the policies that pushed us to follow the science. They can't separate these. They want to, they desperately want to, but they can't. Their policies put people in these positions. Not that I'm not blaming the people who committed these horrible crimes, but the situation was set up by the policies, whether directly due to the immediate effects of lockdowns or a result of the accompanying spike in crime that's come in the name of social justice and reform. The fact that so many children became victims of homicide is another reason why there must be no amnesty for those who pushed damaging policies, and Americans must make sure that such draconian policies are not foisted as unimpeachable science again. Yes, there are people who, and again, this guy who's wearing, who I'm sure if I asked them, maybe I'm not sure, but I have to wonder if I asked him, should I be wearing a mask? Would he say yes? I have to wonder if I asked him, should I be forced to wear a mask by law? Would he say yes? Now he's out. Now he's the dude I'm talking about is the only person who was in the store that I saw wearing a mask, from employees to other customers. He's the only one. Not sure what he was trying to do. We have been at at a hospital recently. At a hospital where there were some people wearing masks in a hospital. Now, I've said this before. I understand why you'd wear a mask in a hospital. Hospital is full of sick people. Hospital is full of people who are desperately ill, right? Most of the nurses, I only saw a couple of nurses wearing masks. And I probably saw 30 nurses all day long. And people who were working behind the counters in that line. But there was nobody was forcing anyone to wear a mask in the hospital. I went to the doctor recently because I'm a man of a certain age. The mask mandate for my doctor's office has been lifted. When I walked in there 6 months ago, just 6 months ago, had to wear a mask had to wear a mask in the building, and they had set off the chairs so you would only you couldn't sit right next to somebody else. Stupid. Anyway, and the person who would come get you would come get you, and then they would spray off your chair like you were leaving some sort of nastiness there because you put your butt in that seat. So they would spray it off before they walked you back. Really. Anyway, but that's not even the case anymore. So this dude who's in the Staples wearing a mask, I'm wondering what he's doing. I'm wondering what the hell he's doing. Aren't you? So these people who are pushing the follow the science policies, the lockdowns, the school closures, we warned them, a lot of us here on Fight Back Media, here on the Morning Report, and a lot of other conservative sources said that this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a problem that will reach farther than the virus, that'll reach into the society, that'll reach into the culture for a time to come. And we'll find out about it later. Sure enough, Here we are. Here we are. This next story is a developing story, my friends. It has to do with the border and what's going on the border. We did a story on this a couple days ago, didn't we? Yeah, we did. Um, this week, 20,000 migrants were reportedly waiting for Title 42 to end so they could cross the border in the United States. They are in they're in Mexico. And they have made huge caravans, some of them escorted by the Mexican law enforcement, so they can be ready the day that Title 42, which is a health decree that was imposed during the Trump administration to shut down people from just coming into the country unabated. Huh. Title 42 was scheduled to expire tomorrow, Wednesday, December 21st. The order has been in place since 2020 that allowed Border Patrol agents to expel migrants at the southern border due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a methodology, it was a way to keep what we're seeing from happening. According to the New York Post, Lesser said on Monday that the shelters on the other side of the border were completely full as migrants awaited for Title 42's removal. For those of you who think that everything that happens here happens, in a bubble that happens and nobody else in the world knows about, guess what? Those people who want entry into this country, they know more about what's going on than most of us do. We've been talking to some of the partners in Mexico, and we're talking also to Border Patrol, and those are the numbers that have been fed back to us. Lester said in a press briefing, the shelters in Juarez are completely full today, and they believe there's about 20,000 people ready to come into El Paso, Texas. Reportedly, Border Patrol has used Title 42 to turn away thousands of migrants to enter through the U.S.-Mexico border since its implementation under President Trump in 2020. This is according to the New York Post. The Border Patrol has used Title 42 to expel about 40% of all illegal border crossings since it was implemented by Trump in 2020. Even though it may not end this week, and that's the story we want to get to. Local leaders say they are continuing to prepare for a human tidal wave, with more than 5,000 migrants a day attempting to cross the border. El Paso is currently the epicenter of the border crisis, with more immigrants crossing there than anywhere else in the country, according to the U.S. Border Patrol stats. Since August, city resources have been strained as a number of migrants arriving in the city continue to rise. Now, you remember when Governor DeSantis gathered up about 50 migrants from Texas and flew them in a private jet to Martha's Vineyard. How people in Martha's Vineyard started throwing up their hands saying that this is a humanitarian crisis. This is a humanitarian crisis. What are we going to do? 50,000 immigrants a day in El Paso. 5,000 a day, not 50,000. 5,000 a day. Lesser issued a disaster declaration over the border crisis on Saturday, requesting help from the state and federal governments so the city can set up a shelter. But migrants out of the overwhelmed border community get extra law enforcement. El Paso is looking to set up mass sheltering with the American Red Cross arriving in El Paso with about 10,000 cots for people to sleep in. 10,000 cots. It's 2 days worth of people. Local leaders are looking at options including using the city's convention center and school district facilities as shelters. Sarah from Town Hall reported this week that Leicester declared a declaration of disaster for El Paso because it could no longer keep its residents safe from the migrants planning to come through the border after Title 42's end date. In October, Town Hall covered how El Paso ended its efforts to bus illegal immigrants to sanctuary cities and force Venezuelan immigrants back to Mexico. They gave up because they were getting sued by the federal government. But anyway, that's another story. A spokesperson for the city of El Paso told Reuters that the bus program was no longer needed, except it was. Reportedly, El Paso bused about 10,000 migrants 2 days. 10,000 migrants to New York and 3,000 to Chicago since August, following the lead of GOP Governor Greg Abbott. Now, here is an update on Title 42. The Supreme Court on Monday temporarily blocked an order that would lift Title 42, the pandemic era health policy that has been used to deter migrants more than 2.5 million times. If you're talking about deterring 2.5 million people, we're not talking about 50 people. We're talking about a number of people that changes the demographic of a nation. Even when we're talking about 330 million people total, you add 2.5 million people to that, or 3 million people, or 4 million people, it turns into a change in the demographic. Now, it would be much different. Now, those people who are preaching, well, you know, the nation's becoming a lot more brown, and that's why they're mad. No, it's becoming a lot more illegal, and that's why people are angry. And let me, if I may, talk to people who look like me. The bigger the illegal population, the less political authority or power we have. Here's what they do. Let me let you know something. They go like this. Always such just going. It's us talking about black people. The larger the illegal population, whether it comes from Mexico, Venezuela, anywhere in South America, it ends up here, the less economic power, the less political power, the less cultural power that we have. So it's not something that black people should get on board with the rest of the left's BS and cheer about. It's a disaster for black people in America. It is a disaster for black people in America. The order Monday by Chief Justice John Roberts, as cities along the U.S.-Mexico border have been scrambling to prepare for an expected influx of migrants in anticipation to Title 42's end. Earlier Monday, 19 states had asked the High Court, for an emergency stay that would keep Title 42 in place. In the one-page order, Chief Justice Roberts granted a stay pending further order and asked the government to respond by 5 p.m. today. That's just hours before the end of the restrictions are slated to expire on Wednesday. The Department of Homeland Security said that the public health order will, quote, remain in effect at this time, and individuals who attempted to enter the United States unlawfully will continue to be expelled to Mexico. While this stage of litigation proceeds, we will continue our preparations to manage the border in a safe, orderly, and humane way when Title 42 public health order lifts, the DHS said. We urge Congress to use this time to provide the funds we have requested for border security and management and advance the comprehensive immigration measures President Biden proposed on his first day in office. Here's what we here at Fight Media are proposing: that we obey the law that's already written. It is unlawful for what we're seeing to happen. It's unlawful. And no one's talking about it. And these people aren't talking about it, that it's unlawful. And that all these people should be returned to wherever the hell they came from. Mexico, Venezuela, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, because there are people in this group from all the places I just mentioned. This is no longer just Jose and Maria looking for a better life coming to America. This is not that. It is not. It is sad and it's pathetic that we had to use Title 42, which was some sort of COVID-19 BS, so people would obey the law. A wall? We have a wall. It's the law. Do we need a 75-foot wall? Would be a bad deal, but we already have a wall. It's the damn law. It's the immigration policies that are not being followed. It's the understanding that there's an invasion going on our southwestern border. When there are 5,000 people just pouring over the border every day unabated, there isn't any other way. It's not hyperbolic to say. It is not hyperbolic to say that it's an invasion. And it's an invasion that's being allowed by this administration. That is not hyperbolic to say. It's the truth. It is absolutely, positively our reality. All right. We're almost done. Well, coffee. My friend, um, like that. My friend, Premier One driver. Coffee always tastes better in your cup, bud. Always does. Um, Before I read the next story, I need to thank this person one more time, and I'll write it down in the comment, in the comment area there, in the description box. Thank you, Alex, if that is your real name, at front ask Frontier, for what you did to get our internet going yesterday morning, and it's worked like a charm. The past 2 days, we have a visit coming from Frontier tomorrow. We kept that appointment, but Alex, you went above and beyond, and I rode you pretty hard on Twitter. I did. I rode him pretty hard. I was not nice. I wasn't the nice, pleasant person you see here. I was not. But he, Alex stepped up. Proud of you. Makes me want to recommend Frontier when I didn't want to recommend it at all. I wanted to do just the opposite. You not only just saved a customer, Alex, you gained an advocate. Nice job, buddy. All right. There's an election denier, because election denier is a bad thing, right? Someone who says that the results of an election are fraudulent, right? We can't even say that. For a while, we couldn't even say that. I think the results of this election are fraudulent. That got you tossed off, social media. They got you tossed off here on YouTube. They got you tossed off Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, right? Get you tossed off social media into the bit bucket of the internet, right? However, this guy, Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland, said that the Florida election in 2017 should not be, what do they call it, when they count it and say certified, because he believes that it was fraudulent. He's an election denier. He got to announce that there are going to be 4 criminal referrals of Donald Trump to the Department of Justice. That's right. Election denier Jamie Raskin, Democrat from Maryland, announced yesterday that the January 6th committee would refer former President Donald Trump for a criminal investigation by the Department of Justice on 4 charges. Those charges include conspiracy to defraud the United States, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to make a false statement, and inciting, and assisting, or abiding and comforting an insurrection against the country. Raskin himself has objected to the passive certification of election results, the action at the center of the charges that he and the rest of the committee voted unanimously to refer the former president for prosecution. He's done exactly that. Raskin also announced that the 4 members of the Republican opposition, including House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who is likely the next Speaker of the House, would be referred to the House Ethics Committee sanctions because they refused to obey subpoenas to testify. Democrats took the unprecedented step of targeting the opposition after rejecting McCarthy's right to choose minority members of the committee. Now, Kevin McCarthy, who is not my favorite dude, was the minority leader, and he was his right to choose the members of the minority to be on that committee. Now, the committee said no to all his choices and got people on the committee like Liz Cheney. And so that committee decided that they were going, when McCarthy got subpoenaed, he ignored it. So now they're treating this like some sort of scorched earth. They decided that they're going to refer him to the House Ethics Committee for sanctions, knowing that he's likely to be the next Speaker of the House, third in line to the president. Nowhere in the enabling resolution is the committee granted with the authority to make criminal referrals to the Department of Justice. It's not within their purview. Or to sanction members of Congress, or even issue subpoenas without consulting with a recognized ranking member who leads the minority members of the committee, because there were none. The committee is illegal. The committee is illegal. The committee is likely to said to be, of course, disbanded when the Republican-led House takes office in 2 weeks. Yeah, they can just tear that down. When we start talking about kangaroo courts, we start talking about all this mess. None of this is, the thing is, it is tough because the average person, which you are not, doesn't understand that none of this is real. That they don't have the authority to do any of the things that they've been doing, thus making none of it real. But most people don't know that. The people you work with don't know that. The people you go to church with don't know that. The people in the grocery store, the guy in the mask at the Staples doesn't know that. None of this is real. The news media is going to pretend that it is. And the worst part about that is they know it's not real either. And once you learn, like you just learned from me, that none of it can be done, they did it anyway. They went through with the Kabuki theater anyway. Now it's up to you. Up to you. Is it real? Will you abide by it? One of the things that I heard recently, was that if you want to be a free nation, what do we do? What do we do to keep our freedoms? Because people are so worried about their freedom. What do we do to keep our freedoms? You exercise them. You use them. You want to be free to speak, then speak. Don't think that Twitter is the only avenue to free speech, because it is not. Don't think that Facebook is the only avenue to free speech. It is not. Do not think that YouTube or Rumble or Parler are the only, or MeWe are the only avenues of free speech, because they are not. Start off small. Start in your living room. Then go to a safer place. Start off in your, then lead to your church. Start speaking truth in church. It's the place that relishes the truth more than anywhere. Start speaking truth in church. Start encouraging people with truth in church. Then try it on the bus, on the subway, at your school, in car line when you're picking up your kids. And inculcate the truth in your actions. Speak up. Say no. If you go to the Fight Back Media website, on the very top, you can click a link that takes you to a place where you can buy a T-shirt that says, "No, no, we will not comply." On the back it says, "No, no." Tell them no. Tell them that you will not comply to things that are illegal. You will not comply to things that are immoral. You will not comply to things that are unbiblical. You will not comply. You will not. Let everyone know. That link will also be in the description box. It's also in the description box if you're listening to this podcast on all the podcast platforms. You can find it there, in the comments or in the notes or wherever. You can find it there. Just say no. Just say, thank you, Nancy Reagan. Just say absolutely not. I will not comply to things that are illegal. I will not comply to things that are immoral. I will not comply to things that are unbiblical. I will not comply. I will not. Exercise your freedom to not participate. That's the key. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been the Morning Report for Tuesday, what's today? December 20th, 2022. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.